Hey everybody, welcome to Campus to Contracts. I'm your host, Brendan. Joining as always is Mason as we get into college football general managers. Mason, my first question to start us all off is, we know how important this is. What's the relationship between a coach now and the GM? What does this look like?
Well, I mean, at different schools, obviously there's different types of relationships. So, some schools, the head coach is still pretty much the man. He's the GM, head coach, kind of in that Jerry Jones situation where you're the owner, general manager, and president all in one. But then in other situations, you have schools that have just the head coach is really just in charge of the recruiting of players and the management of those players. And then you have the GM, who's really like the financial officer of the football program or said university and said athletic program. So, depending on the school, some GMs that are really good, they're going to have a little bit more control, a little bit more say-so when it comes to their finances. Their main job is to obviously get money from, boosters or private entities and sponsorships. And that money is directly for those players to come in and play football and some schools basketball or whatever they want to allocate those funds to. But the GM at that university, his main job is to bring in the funds and make sure that he can continue to fund those players.
And I think as I peel back in my memory, when I look back at the college football realm, and the coach was given all the credit when they would win a national championship for building a program and recruiting these players, the coaches that still do it all, how rare is that becoming as we go further into this? Because you're talking about transfer portal, you're talking about contracts that are well beyond anything that we thought we would see in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
How rare is that now? Is that such a rare air that those coaches demand crazy, incredible salaries because they can do it all? Or is that just going to become an extinct kind of position?
Well, head coaches in college football, for the most part, are still leading most states in highest public public employee being paid. So you're not probably going to see much change in that, especially with the value of college football going up. Just the value of these head coaches are going to go up just as well. So the market altogether is going to raise because they're still going to just be able to find extra money to give to those players. But there are some head coaches that, of course, are going to be able to bring a different type of level of recruiting and sustainability to a program. I think what we're going to see is over the next couple of years, the coaches that separate themselves from the rest of the pack is not only able to continue to recruit the best players, to continue to keep the best players, but also now to continue to bring in the best players from other schools via the transfer portal. So once you add that factor in and you're able to attract the best players and you're going to be at a different level of dominance and you have a good general manager with you in tandem that's going to be able to continue to bring in the funds in order to fund your roster, essentially, that combo is going to be unbeatable.
But when I hear what you're saying, these positions, this is a 24/7. This is your life.
Yeah.
These coaches are committing their life to this. So this is not, because when you're talking about transfer portal, you're talking about recruiting. You could be really great at recruiting, but if you're not good at the transfer portal, you're dead in the water.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can find good players, right? You can find good high school players all day long. But if you're not convincing some of these veterans from other universities to come to your school, because again, a lot of them, because of the transfer rules, the unlimited transfers and the possibility of upping your market, there are players that don't necessarily, for a football reason, need to leave their universities. They're jumping in the transfer portal because they want to see if they can up their NIL valuation, if they can get more money, essentially. So when you have a chance of getting those players, you need to execute. And the difference between the good programs that are going to sustain their prestige through all these rule changes and the NIL market and the transfer portal are going to be the programs that can execute when it comes to grabbing the best available players from the transfer portal.
And that's the difference between playoff, non-playoff. You're not kidding about taking it to the next level. It will be interesting over the next 2 to 3, 4 years, which coach can really organize that. I think it's going to take very special talent. And the other thing you're going to see is you have a lot of old school coaches that were just great at recruiting, great at putting together a program, great at having everyone together, and they may not be good at these other factors. You're talking about the contracts, you're talking about the transfer portals, and they may just wash away and become a coordinator, for instance, or not go up to the NFL, go someplace that doesn't have all of these factors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, if you look at it, right, the SEC and the Big Ten, those conferences have grown. They've added powerhouses, like the SEC has added Oklahoma, they've added Texas. The Big Ten has added USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA. Now, because those conferences are so big, right, one loss is not going to be able to allow you to continue on into the playoffs, or two losses are not going to let you go into the playoffs. So you're going to have to be able to beat all the other powerhouse schools that are in those individual conferences. So you're essentially just opening up your market for who you're competing with in the transfer portal, right? It used to be where in the Pac-12, SC was only have to competing with Oregon, Washington, UCLA. Now they're competing with those three schools along with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, schools like that. So when you add all these teams to these other conferences, you're just making it harder for them to individually make it to the playoffs, because you're going to face some of those teams and you're going to bound to lose 1 to 2 to 3 games. And then as soon as you do that, you're going to be kicked out of the top 12, which is the new link for the playoff bracket.
And when you're talking, I mean, it's just so crazy, some of these things. Like one of the other podcasts I listened to, Dave Portnoy is so upset about Michigan not having a good quarterback. He literally reached out to the school and said, whatever we need to do on NIL money to make sure we will never have a season like this again, we will have an elite quarterback every year at Michigan. That can absolutely happen.
Yes.
A person outside the university can have that much of an impact to say, listen, we will never not have a great quarterback again. And then you're able to spend the money you need for the elite transfer portal, which happens quite often on quarterbacks. And we both know quarterbacks are going to give you the playoffs. Like the great quarterbacks will get you in the playoffs. So hearing things like that, and then in your brain, rewinding it to like, that's illegal, because 5 years ago, that's illegal.
Yeah.
That's not even allowed to be talked about. These are open conversations. And he's somebody who is extremely wealthy, similar to the Oregon Nike owner who basically said, whatever you need. These are open conversations. So you're going to have more of this throughout all of college.
Of course. I mean, look at it. He can literally say to any sort of quarterback who's already currently on a roster, because he's a private entity. He's not a booster for the school. He's not working with the school. He's not on behalf of the school. There's no tampering here. He has a favorite school. He could go up to someone and be like, hey, I want to give you $1 million and this sponsorship deal, but you have to play for Michigan. How do you get him in trouble for that? I want to know how you get him in trouble for that. If someone in the comments knows how you get in trouble for that, please let us know.
It's just such a I mean, I can't even imagine being a 20-year-old and being approached for that amount of money. Like, yes, I'll go be quarterback for Michigan.
Yeah.
Like, it's, why wouldn't you?
Quarterback getting $1 million in this day and age is not unheard of in college. Not unheard of. They've had guys that are already making upwards of $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. So there's a lot of guys that are making that type of scratch.
So when we go back, and I mean, again, the essence of this show is campus to contracts. And we, at the end of the day, we were looking at how do you get to the pros? Are we safe to say right now the NCAA landscape, we can consider it professional at this point?
I don't think you can say it's fully professional. We can go with a semi-pro aspect, but I wouldn't say professional. I think professional, you just have to get to that next level. Like, because then what do you call the pros?
I'm just saying from a contract standpoint, because you're getting a great contract if you play for college.
You could say it's like the development league for the NFL, which I guess would be pros, right?
I mean, that's a fair statement. I mean, okay, so the next question that I have, we'll dive into further in other episodes, but is this starting to bleed down into high schools? Are you seeing the talent be noticed in high school to the point that they are getting NIL deals in high school before they even go into college?
Well, there's definitely a big answer to that. So check out the next episode.
So, folks, for all of you traditionalists who believe that your team is pure and they're there to fight for the tradition of Notre Dame or Texas or Ohio State, just so you know, your team has been granted the fruits of the labors of past generations that they can now pass on in the likes of an NIL deal. So your quarterback that you get from another university, they're playing there not just because they love the university, which they do. They love the university, but mainly because the university gives them a wonderful contract. So criticize them all you like, because guess what? The school paid them to play there to bring home a championship. And that's why we get exciting football games. That's why we get talent dispersed all around. I think, to your point earlier, we're going to see a lot of upsets in the playoffs because of this format. We're going to see teams that rise to the top that were very unexpected. Thank you, Mason, as always. I appreciate the insight. And for those looking for applications to great career opportunities, a general manager or associate general manager to the university of your choosing would be a great foundation for many, many years to come. I'm your host, Brendan, and that is Mason. Thanks, everybody.